Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second live stream. My name's John Tracy, and for the next 40 minutes or so, I've got something pretty cool to share with you all. Now, why do I do these live streams? The main reason is to keep me accountable. So as we go through the presentation today, and I'm going to talk about how we're doing with the Zero Challenge, the whole reason for doing this is to be as transparent as I can with you guys as to how we're doing, whether it's working or not, how much money we're raising for good causes, and I want you all to help keep me accountable. Now, let me jump across here. So as we go through today, there's going to be sort of three areas, and I think probably the best place to start, just so that I know that everything's working, if you're in the chat, please do just pop in where you're coming in from. Just let me know, and that way I'll see you pop up on the screen and I'll know that everyone can actually hear what I'm saying. But as we go through today, I want to talk about three different things. I want to answer your questions. So if you have questions that you desperately want to get answered, 10 with our first solar system. And for those of you that are familiar with the FIT scheme, the feed-in tariff that was available at the time, we took advantage of that. But at the time, we weren't financially stable. We weren't in any sort of great condition. But we decided that instead of having a summer holiday that year, we were going to buy a solar system for our house because we were sure it was going to pay off in the future. Now, what we did was we put a 2 kilowatt system on the roof and an old Fronius inverter, and that was registered under the FIT scheme. And that system paid for itself in about 5 years. Now, at the 5-year point, we realized that this is actually a really good thing to do, and we should get a bigger system so we could pay more of our energy bills. So we invested in a second solar system to go alongside the existing one. And over the years, we've kind of added on like Lego bricks as we go. So yes, it was expensive. Yes, it would be a lot more expensive than it would be if you were to do it today. But the message really is you don't have to do it all at once. And certainly with modern battery technology, modern batteries are very modular. So it's very easy to start small and then just add another one as and when you can afford it. Okay, second question that comes up quite a lot is, why did you choose a heat pump? What's the one thing that made you want to invest in a heat pump? And for those of you that have followed any of my heat pump videos, you'll know that I really didn't have a choice. Well, I didn't have a choice as to, I had to replace my heating system. We had a 27-year-old boiler. Every time the heating engineer came to do its yearly service, he would remind me that that boiler is so old that we can't get spares for it. It's actually condemned. You need to do something about it. And then 2 winters ago, we started to notice that the house wasn't quite as warm as it should be, and the boiler was working a bit harder. So we made the decision that we were going to do something about it. Now, what is the one thing that made me choose a heat pump over a new condensing boiler? And if I'm totally honest with you, the main reason we chose a heat pump is I can generate the power to run it. Now, obviously not in the depths of winter. Even with 9 kilowatts of solar, I don't produce anywhere near enough power in the winter to run the heat pump. But for the rest of the year, the heat pump is basically running for free. And for those that are on the call who are here in the UK, you'll know we've had some glorious weather the last couple of days. Heat pump has been running completely free. So even in the evenings when we need to heat the house, that's all been done from solar power that's been stored in the battery and heats the house all evening long. So it hasn't cost us a penny to run the heat pump so far this month. Then the last one was kind of took me by surprise because I was asked this question about 3 or 4 days ago. And 3 or 4 days ago, I would have said, I haven't seen any backlash for owning a Tesla. And then 2 days ago, I was in Tesco's, and as I was getting into my car, this lady came up behind me and said, I don't know how you can bear to be seen in that car after what Elon's done. And I was quite shocked. One was like, I didn't ask for your opinion, but since she offered her opinion, I gave her my response. And my response is, I bought this car before Elon went a bit mad. I don't associate the tens of thousands of people that work at Tesla necessarily with Elon's politics. I know sometimes it's hard to separate one from the other, but I'm certainly not going to throw away a perfectly good car just because there's some guy associated with it who we don't necessarily agree with his politics. So yeah, I've been, I'm not going to call myself a victim of the backlash, but I have had somebody call me out over it, and I'm going to continue to keep my car, and I'm going to enjoy it. So those are the three questions I had up front. There'll be plenty of time. If anyone has questions, I can see people already posting in the chat. Hi, David from South Wales. I hope you had some good weather in South Wales. I'm possibly going to be heading up to the Brecon Beacons in the next few weeks, and I hope the weather's going to be good because every time I've been there in the past, it's been snowing sideways. Chris is saying, watching with interest, and my heat pump install starts tomorrow. You couldn't have picked a better time. When I had mine installed, it was back in November. Those were some of the coldest nights we've ever had in our house when we didn't have the heating. So you'll have a day or so without hot water and a couple of days probably without heating. But yeah, when it's as sunny as this, probably won't matter quite so much. Let me try something. I think I can bring, there we go. I can bring the questions onto the screen. So James, isn't it better to export electricity at 15p rather than buy it? Yes. So obviously, if you're exporting energy, in fact, what time is it? So in about 20 minutes' time, my battery will start force exporting a lot of the energy that it built up today, and I'll earn 15p a kilowatt for it. You can buy the energy in during the winter and then export it and make money on it. You won't make a lot because you'll probably be buying it in at around about 7p. Plus VAT, and then you'll be selling it back at maybe making about 8 pence a kilowatt profit. But yeah, it's definitely exporting energy is the right thing to do right now. And in fact, our solar diverter, which is the MyEnergy Eddy device that sits next to our water tank, is switched off because I don't want any of that excess solar going into the hot water tank because it's cheaper to use the heat pump to heat the hot water. And I want every single kilowatt hour exporting. And over the last 3 days, we've exported nearly enough energy. I would say compared to February, we've exported 2/3 of what we exported in the whole month of February in the last 3 days. So yeah, this weather has been glorious. Okay. James, yeah, you coming in from Essex. So we're opposite sides of the country from South Wales. So for those of you that don't know, I'm in Cambridgeshire. I live just out in the Fens, just north of Cambridge. Lovely part of the country, but yeah, I kind of miss the hills living here. Every time I go somewhere where there are hills, I look at it and think, it'd be nice just to see a hill once in a while. Don't get those around here. Okay, so let's take a different tack for the moment. I say, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. I will answer them as we go through. But let's take a dive into my net zero challenge and see how it's going. So for those that don't know, my net zero challenge was a way of keeping myself accountable in 2025. And what I did with the beginning of the year was set myself the challenge that at the end of 2025, my energy bill would be 0 or less. Now, that's difficult to do when you start in January and February, but my plan is that we will generate more energy in pounds than we will actually spend. And at the end of the year, there will be a surplus. So the objective is to have a £0 energy bill, and the surplus, whatever we export over that, we're going to donate that money to good causes. So how do we do this? What's the way this is going to work? Well, for those that don't know, this is my 9.6 kilowatt solar system. You can see it's split over 3 roofs. So we have a south by southwest facing 10 panel array. The one you can see on the left there, that's pretty new. That was installed. That replaced the old FIT system. So that was 10 200 watt panels. This is 10 440 watt panels. So that's the south by southwest facing roof. The top right there, you can see that's my north by northeast facing array. So that's 8 435 watt panels. And for those that have always been told, don't put panels on north facing roofs, they are incredible. At this time of the year, the sun comes up about 7:30 in the morning. Those panels were generating this morning at 7:35. In the height of the summer, once we get into June and July, those panels start generating about 4:30 in the morning as the sun starts to peak up. So having them on the front of the house and the back of the house means that we have a generation day that runs from about 4:30 in the morning to sometimes nearly 9 o'clock at night, which is just an amazing amazing system. And then the 4 you can see there are actually on top of my garage. Those are kind of south by southeast facing. So again, they get pretty much the same per panel as I get on my south by southwest roof. Now, all of that goes into these 3 monsters. These are my SolarEdge batteries. Each battery is about 9.7 kilowatts. They just sit there and do their thing. You don't have to manage them. If you don't want to muck around with the app or anything, you can just leave them and they just work almost seamlessly. We do actually have some other batteries. For those of you that follow any of my videos, you know, I have a bit of a thing for batteries. It's bordering on being a problem. So we also have 7.2 kilowatts of EcoFlow batteries connected to my fence-mounted solar panels. So these panels here are actually the ones that used to live on my roof, or at least 4 of the 10 that used to live on my roof. So these are 15-year-old panels, and they're doing a sterling job. They're generating, you know, not huge amounts of power, but they're contributing to power that's going into these 2 batteries through a very small 800-watt microinverter, and obviously into the house from there. And I might just have ordered another EcoFlow battery, but not telling the wife. So before we upgraded the system, we were generating about 5.4 megawatts a year. This year, I'm fully expecting to see that somewhere around about 7, maybe even 8 megawatts. We will see at the end of the year. So the way we're going to measure this to see that this all works is, and again, this is why I do this live, is I want to be very transparent with everybody as to the monies that's involved. Because I'm going to be asking you guys what we do with that money. Robin's asking a question. Let me just pull that up, Robin, because it's easy to read when I get it on the screen. How much did the DNO allow you to export? Well, I'm going to say I'm one of the lucky few. The DNO didn't put any restrictions on me. They gave me the full 10 kilowatts that my inverter could do, and actually said if I need more, just come back to them. Now, we did this in stages. The original FIT system was 2 kilowatts. We just did I don't even think it was called a G98 then. There was a different approval. Then when we did the second system and we went up to about 5 kilowatts, we did a G98 for the second system, and they said, no, you've got to do a G99 for everything. So we did a G99 for that. And they gave us 5.6 kilowatt export at that point. And then when we went to 10, I was thinking, I'm never going to get away with this. So I actually said to them, could we have 8? And they said, you can have 10. If you want 10, have 10. If you need more, come back to us. So I think it's probably because slightly out in the fens from Cambridge that, you know, there's not so many people exporting large amounts of power. Obviously, if you live in the center of a city, it might be a little bit different. But yeah, no restrictions on that the full 10 kilowatt export. Right. So the way we're gonna measure this is, I mean, we could go into, you know, kilowatt hours, but I think the easiest way is to do it in pounds and pence. So this was my Octopus account balance on the 1st of January. It was £122.99 in credit. So this is what I'm going to call the zero marker. So at the end of the year, when I look at this account, anything above £122 will be extra that will go into the pot, and we'll donate that to a good cause. So remember that number. I will put it in every single month when I do this. But and I say here, we will donate it to a good cause, because I'm not going to be the sole arbiter of this. I'm not going to decide who gets this money. I'm going to ask you guys to jump in and you know, give me some suggestions. Tell me who you think we should be giving this money to, and we'll come back to other ways that we're going to generate some money in a minute. Steve's saying, are you on a single phase or a 3-phase? I'm on a single phase, and that brings some challenges, shall we say. So I'm on a single phase. I'm on a 100 amp non-looped circuit. So I'm not sharing that with anybody else, but I've got a 100 amp breaker. And I did apply to see if I could get 3-phase. the phone call I had with the DNO was quite interesting because they tapped a few buttons on the computer. Then I think there was a laugh, but I'm not quite sure. But they said, yeah, you're probably not going to want to do this. It was going to cost £60,000 to get a three-phase supply into my house. So according to their planning system, I'm about as far from the box, whatever that box is, where the three-phase supply would come from. They'd have to dig up parts of the road because there's no spare conduit to run the cable through. So they would either have to burrow through with a mole or dig up parts of the road, which I'm sure my neighbours would love. And then we've got quite a long driveway that we share with 2 or 3 of our neighbours. So they'd have to come up there, and again, I'd have to inconvenience all the neighbours. So I'd love to get a three-phase supply. It's just not happening, not at that price. So yeah, we're on a single phase, 100 amp supply. Now the challenges that brings are quite interesting because we have 2 electric cars, we have a heat pump, we have a 10 kilowatt inverter. So if you add just those up together, 2 cars that can draw 7 kilowatts each, that's 64 amps. The 10 kilowatt inverter is another, 40 amps. So we're already over 100 amps straight away just with those 3. That's before we start heating the house. So we have to be a little bit careful. I do some proactive scheduling. So for those that have watched it in the videos, I'm getting into Home Assistant. I'm starting to become more confident or more adventurous or more dangerous, depending on who you speak to. And we make sure that, for instance, the cars and both the cars are never charging at the same time, or the inverter. One of the advantages of having a really big inverter is that we can fill our 30 kilowatts of batteries in 3 hours. So if you think of the Octopus Intelligent Go gives you 6 hours, even if they were completely empty, they'd be full by 2:30 in the morning. So that means we've got more hours for during the evening. The heat pump generally ramps down during the evening, doesn't draw as much power because we set back the temperature in the house. And we very rarely charge both cars at the same time. So long as we're careful, we fit within that 100 amp supply, and we haven't had any problems yet. Fingers crossed. Okay, so before we get into how much power I use, let's talk about how you guys can participate in this, because you've already been doing it, probably without knowing. So one of the other things I'm going to do with this YouTube channel is all of the money that I earn from YouTube is going to go into the pot for good causes as well. I'm not going to take a penny from that. Also, any Amazon affiliate links, that's all going to go into the pot as well. So just in February, you guys helped us earn £325.59 from YouTube, and £2.90 from Amazon. Amazon, you don't make a lot of money from affiliate links, apparently. There was also £6 from Buy Me a Coffee. So Simon Dudley and Les from Wigan, thank you very much for that. And also anybody who uses any of my referral codes for the heat pump, switching to Octopus, or any of the things you'll find in the descriptions of my videos, all of that money goes straight into this pot. So we had £200 of heat pump referrals this month. One person changed over to Octopus, so there was another £50 there. Les chucked £3 into the pot, another £2.90 from Amazon, and £325.59 from YouTube ads. Now, I have to pay tax on all of that because it's all classed as income. So I'm going to cover the taxes on that, which means that all of that money, 100% of the money that you guys are generating through watching my videos and letting the ads play through, is all going to good causes. So nothing will get deducted from that. So a huge thank you to Jeanette and Peter, who I believe have just had a heat pump installed, or just about to have the heat pump installed. Gavin switched across to Octopus, so there's a £50 donation from him. And there was also one mystery benefactor. Now, I don't quite know how this happens because I don't get notifications. I get a credit into the account, but sometimes I don't get a notification. I don't know if that's just a bug in Octopus's system, or if it's a box that you tick that says, I don't want anybody to know who this was. So one other person, if you're on the call, thank you very much. There was £100 there, again, that all goes into the pot. So if you guys use any of these links, you don't need to write these down. They're all in the descriptions for every single video. But anytime you use these links, every single penny of that will go into the pot for good causes. And like I say, just watching the videos is great because YouTube revenue will help towards that as well. So let me drag another question up. I would suggest buying a Bright Glow device if you are using. I absolutely have a Bright Glow device sitting in my kitchen, and it is linked to my Home Assistant. So yeah, for those of you that don't know this, when you get a smart meter installed, you'll get something called an IHD, an in-home device. You've all seen them, the little, whoops, banging the microphone, the little LCD screens that show you how much power you're using in real time. The ones you get as standard with the system are junk. To be honest, the Bright Glow device isn't that much better, but it has one feature that the ones you get for free don't have. That is, you can set them up in Home Assistant through something called MQTT. And it means that in real time, I can get information from my smart meter into Home Assistant for real-time energy use. So if anyone wants to see what this looks like, I actually put out a video the other day. There's some Home Assistant stuff in that. If you look at the dashboard, up in the top right corner, you'll see something called a power flow diagram, and you'll see lots of lines connecting things and power whizzing between them. The vast majority of that, certainly the incoming side from my energy provider, all comes through that MQTT connection from my my Bright device. So again, you can do that. You can do this in multiple ways. You can get it through the Octopus API. If you've got an Octopus Mini, the little pink device, you can get it from that. I get mine from my Bright Glow device. Really like it, and it's been super stable. We don't actually use the in-home display because we've got other ways of doing it. But I installed that device. I connected it to Home Assistant 2 years ago, I think. I've never even touched it. It just works every single day, and I think it costs about £50. So, yeah, the reliability alone is worth it. Okay, so in February, you guys raised a grand total of £581.49. So we put that with what we earned in January. We're already over £1,000. And that's just from, like I say, watching YouTube videos, clicking on Amazon affiliate links or anything like that. So congratulations, everybody. You've done an amazing job so far. There's £1,000 that we're gonna find a good home for later in the year. So now let's go back to what I've been doing from a power and an export point of view. And some of you are probably going to be shocked by quite how much power we use in our house. Now, we've got, as I say, we've got 2 electric cars. We've got a 10 kilowatt inverter, we've got a heat pump. So we're quite heavy electricity users. And in January and February, that can be quite expensive. But let's dig into the numbers and I'll show you what we used. So our power bill for January was £99.05. So this is the graph directly out of the Octopus website. You can see along the bottom there's the standing charge. The green is the off-peak, and the little bit pink at the top is the peak. Now, one of the things that, I don't know if this is something that all inverters do, but I've noticed certainly with the SolarEdge inverters, is they take a little bit of time sometimes to adjust. If you suddenly turn on a lot of power and the inverter's kind of snoozing, it can take a second or two, sometimes a little bit more to ramp up. The days where we used a bit more, so around about the 9th, 10th and 11th, those were the days when it was really cold. And we basically ran out of batteries. We drained the batteries completely flat and ended up using a little bit of power from the grid. But the little bit of pink icing that you see on top of the cake there, that's generally just the 1 kilowatt a day maybe for a total that we use as the inverter ramps up and ramps down. We got a couple more questions, so let me hold on those for a minute. Let me get through these numbers and then we'll dig into all the questions. So from an electricity point of view, £99.05. That was down. So it was a saving of £44.75 from what we did in January. So again, it is a slightly shorter month. Obviously, there's a few days less, but you can start to see the energy price that we're spending going down as we get into the year, which is obviously a good thing. In kilowatt hours, this is where people are going to go, what? So we used 1.12 megawatts in February. Again, seems a lot, but what you can see there is if you imagine 30 kilowatt hours of that, certainly on the very cold days, is just filling the batteries back up so that we've got off-peak energy for the whole day. But then 2 electric cars running the heat pump on the coldest days. Again, you can see there on the 9th, we used nearly 60 kilowatt hours during that day. But for £99, it's if I was having to pay the standard rate for that, I wouldn't be doing this live stream because I'd have to sell all my computers to pay the energy bill. But so we're a high energy use house. From an export point of view, we did export some power. You can certainly see as we get to the end of February there, the sun decided to finally come out, because for the first 3 weeks of February, it was miserable and grey and overcast. So we made £17.39 from export. So from that £99, you can deduct another £17. And we exported 54 kilowatt hours. And again, most of that was in the last few days of February because the weather changed to just like it is now. But basically, that was 89% more than we exported in January. And as I say, we're 4 days into March now, and we've already exported 2/3 of that whole amount in 4 days. And I say, in about 4 minutes' time, my batteries will start force exporting, and we'll probably dump another 10 kilowatts today. Gas, now we put the heat pump in, but we still have gas because we have a gas hob, and after doing all this work, we didn't have enough money left to redo the kitchen, so that's a job for this year. So as we redo our kitchen, we will get rid of the gas hob, which means will allow us to terminate the gas supply. And I can't wait, because if you look at it, we use a tiny amount of gas now. The only thing in the house that uses it is the gas hob. So our bill for the whole of February was £10.29. Look at the standing charge. If I take that away, our gas bill was only actually £2.06. But we paid £10.29 for the privilege of having £2 worth of gas. Crazy. 79% of my gas bill is now standing charge. So this is my incentive to get on and get the kitchen done, get an induction hob in this year, and I can eliminate that standing charge straight away. For those that want the kilowatts, that's 32 kilowatt hours of gas for the whole month. So this is what the numbers look like. As I say, £99, gas import £10.29, energy export £17.39. We had no free electricity in February. Now we've actually had 2 sessions already in March. Unfortunately, it was so sunny, I couldn't take advantage of them. The cars were full, the batteries were full, we were exporting energy. There was literally nothing short of turning the oven on and leaving the door open to heat the house. There was really no way to use free electricity. But yeah, there was none in February whatsoever. So really our total outgoings for February were £91.95. Now, what I'm going to do with this is, again, the idea here is to have a net zero at the end of the year. So as you can see, first 2 months, we're £197.02 in the red. So that means obviously March through October, we need to be doing a lot better, and looking at the March numbers already. And as soon as we get into April, once the clocks change, the graph drastically changes. We start going up by 400, 500, 600 kilowatt hours a month. And I say, by the time we get into June, I'm fully expecting to be somewhere about generating about 1.5 megawatts in the month. So doesn't look so great now, but I'm sure it will be by the end of the year. So that's all the numbers. I said I will do another stream back on the 8th of April, and we'll dig into numbers then. I've got a couple of cool videos planned for you guys over the next couple of weeks. We've actually had our heat pump now for 90 days, and probably the 90 coldest days of the year. So I'm going to do an analysis of, was it the right thing to do? If we'd have just bought a new gas boiler and we're paying the gas prices, what would that have cost compared to running the heat pump? So that's coming in the next week. I've got a cool new toy. Now, I showed you the picture earlier on of my fence-mounted solar panels, and these will never make money. Let me be totally honest about that. But they're second-hand panels. The inverter cost me £99. It was worth a try. But there was an announcement from a company called EcoFlow, who I consequently get some of my batteries from. I bought, not sponsored or anyway, I bought what's called a single-axis tracker from them. So this allows the panels on the fence to actually lift up, and they track the sun. So they keep themselves in the sort of optimal position for generating energy. Now, I installed it a couple of days ago. I recorded a video or parts of a video that isn't yet finished, and it doesn't work. The actual solar tracker bit of it is broken, so they're sending me another one. So that video might be delayed a couple more days till we get the new parts. But video coming on that. And then I've got a video. I went out to one of the towns out nearby called St Ives. They've done something really quite cool. They've taken their park and ride site and they've covered more than 2/3 of it in solar panels. And it's amazing. It really is and this could be the future for solar farms, is using sites like this. And I just found out today, the same council that did this site at the end of last year is currently doing the car park in the leisure centre where I actually go swimming. For the last couple of weeks I've been there and they've been digging the car park up. And I finally went in and asked, what are you doing? Oh, we're installing a massive solar canopy and electric car charging. It's like, brilliant. So again, keep an eye out for those. Okay, let's leave that and let's go back to the questions at the moment. So, David is asking, have I done any videos on Home Assistant? So I haven't done. I've done a couple. Home Assistant, for those that don't know this, it's possibly the most powerful home automation system I've come across, but it's a little bit geeky for most people. Now, there are plenty of great channels out there. Ollie, who does the Speak to the Geek channel, there's another one called the Bearded Tinkerer. I learned everything I needed to know about Home Assistant from these guys. I'm not going to try and do tutorials on Home Assistant because, as I say, there are much, much better channels out there. I will do the occasional video where I show you how I'm using it. And in fact, again, a funny little experiment I did the other day. I got my EcoFlow battery, not the big ones. Yeah, I know I've got a battery problem. This little battery here. And I charge this when there's excess solar using a little Sonoff USB switch. Again, so there's a video up there on that. There's a couple more, not a huge amount, but if you want more, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Robin, wow. I assume that was in relation to the 1 point something megawatts of power. Yeah, there's a lot of power no matter however you look at it. Okay, so once the sun reaches 30 degrees in the sky, yeah, so if this is a little bit inside baseball, but there's a great app called Sun on Track. I think it's about £6 I use on my phone, but it's a virtual reality app where you can hold it up in the sky and it will show you the track of the sun today. So it will show you where the sun's going to be at certain times of the day. And it will also then show you where it will be on like the summer equinox and the winter equinox. So if you're planning to do something crazy like me and shove panels on your fences in your garden, you can actually track where the sun's going to be, so you can sort of make decisions about where your panels are going to be. It's really great for things like, okay, if that tree at the bottom of the garden grows another 3 feet, is that going to start obstructing my panels? I think it's about £7, something like that. Again, it wasn't expensive. Sun on Track, yeah, really worth it for that kind of thing. But yeah, I think once the clocks change, that's when it really makes a difference. I noticed that in the graph last year. At the end of March, the graph just went off the roof. Anyway, please include mortgage company grants in your videos and others. Barclays gave me. Yeah, so I'm a little bit cautious about giving financial advice. So a little bit of history for everybody. Until I was about 48, so not that long ago, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I was really bad with money. I'm not great with money now, so I'm not a person to be giving out financial advice, but I can certainly look into it. I mean, I know Barclays had a thing recently where if you had a mortgage from Barclays, you could add on to it for green technology, solar panels, batteries, heat pumps, those kind of things, and it would be zero rated for interest. As I was browsing through my Octopus app to look at usage today, Octopus are offering 0% on installs of solar panels right now. So again, there's lots of deals out there. I'll certainly do what I can to go look at them and see what I can find. Bob's saying it'd be good to how was this? Yeah, so I'm still really learning my way around MQTT. So for those that are geeky enough to know or want to know a bit more about it, the way I understand MQTT is it's kind of like a broadcast system, is that your devices will throw out status updates. So it will, for instance, if you've got a battery that supports it, it'll say, I'm charging, I'm discharging, I'm holding my power. And then other app parts or other applications and devices can subscribe to those notifications. So it's a way of being able to do communication between different vendors. So long as they all support MQTT, then it really doesn't matter, because you can just send a notification and say, hey, I'm charging. Well, if you're charging, now do something here. And that's really, as far as I use Home Assistant, is pretty basic automations. I like to keep things simple, because I've got a bit of a background in coding. But every single time I've gone to look at code that I wrote 2 or 3 years ago, even though I do the best possible job I can to write lots of comments in them and document it all, I always end up looking at my own code going, what were you thinking? What have you done here? So yeah, I don't want to end up having something that automates my house and then not being able to troubleshoot my own system. So yeah, I'll certainly look into it as I'm learning more about MQTT. Robin's saying, for those that we were talking about the solar app, there's an app called Lunar SolCal. Is that the full name, Robin? It's free. So yeah, do a search for that. If you're looking for something like that, then could be really useful. And like I say, for my fence mounted panels, being able to see where the sun is going to be is really useful. It also allows me to strategically trim the trees at the bottom of my garden, just to get those few extra watts. So here we go. So as long as you're using a Trustmark installer, the grant worked easily. Octopus, Trustmark roads. Yeah. So for anyone that is thinking of having solar installed, if you're not, I'd imagine most people on this call have probably already got it, but if you're not, or you're looking to expand it, there are a lot of cowboys out there. There are a lot of companies that just seem great. They come and do a great job. Before you know it, they've gone bust, or they folded the company up, and then you're trying to get support from them, and they're just not there. We're all kind of pre-programmed to, I want the lowest price, but the lowest price usually doesn't come with any form of decent support. So yeah, find a company with Trustmark. Read all the reviews you can on them. If you know somebody who's had an install by them, go and get their thoughts. I wish I could find the photograph. I'd show you guys a photograph. So my next door neighbor was having solar installed while we were having our last upgrade to the system. And my installers, they were really great. They, full safety, full scaffolding. Even when they're up on the scaffolding rigs, they were tethered. They were all wearing hard hats. And the guys next door had no scaffolding, were climbing around on the roof with no safety kit whatsoever. And actually, if they'd have fallen off, they'd have ended up falling on top of my installers that were working on my garage roof just below the next door neighbours. So, excuse me. So yeah, just be careful who you contract. Steve's asking, if you did it all again, would you choose SolarEdge again? Probably not. I've had a rocky relationship with SolarEdge. Now, don't get me wrong, the batteries, they're very simplistic. You plug them in and they work. Now, for the first 2 years of owning SolarEdge batteries, I wasn't allowed to manage my own batteries. So the way SolarEdge set the system up is your installer comes in, they provision it all, and then you get given a level of access. And that's not full control of your system. And actually with 2 inverters, I couldn't control my batteries. All the app said was this functionality will come for sites with 2 inverters or multiple inverters soon. And that was there for 2 years. And only once I consolidated everything into one inverter did I get control of my own batteries. The app's not great. It's usually delayed a little bit. It's certainly not real time. The web interface is poor at best, but it does work, and it works reliably. So that's the pros of it. The optimizers. So the reason I stayed with SolarEdge, I actually took out 2 small SolarEdge inverters. So you remember at the beginning I said we used to have a Fronius inverter. That one died. We replaced that with a 2 kilowatt SolarEdge back 8-9 years ago. Whenever SolarEdge were quite new. We then added a 3.6 kilowatt in the garage, and then we took both of those out and consolidated them into a 10. The reason we stayed with SolarEdge, and that was my decision point, was that more than half of the panels that were on our roof at that point all had SolarEdge optimizers on them. So the cost of removing those panels and taking the SolarEdge optimizers off would have just made an expensive project even more expensive. So we stayed with SolarEdge there. If I was doing it all again now, probably not. I would probably go with something else. I love the look of the Give Energy web portal, the tools that they provide. It look, really modern web tool set, really nice. Their API, from everything I've read, is pretty good. I'm trying to think of the name of it now. Is it Sig Energy? Their new battery system, that looks really nice. I was watching, the guys from Artisan Electrics in Cambridge, I don't know if anyone follows their channel, they did a video recently where they installed a big Sig Energy battery, and Sig Energy have now got a DC charger for your car. So instead of having a 7 kilowatt AC, I think you can have a 12 kilowatt single phase or something like a 24 kilowatt if you've got 3-phase DC charger. So you can take DC straight out of your batteries and straight into your car without any losses there. I understand it's quite expensive though. So would probably do something different. In your mind saying, yeah, spot on in terms of safety. I've got a panel outside. I'll next time I do a video, I'll show you guys it. So when they were taking the panels off of my roof, they again, all credit to them. They used a hoist to bring the panels down and take the new panels up. One of those old 220 watt panels fell out of the bag or whatever they used to lift it up there. I've still got it. It stayed, the frame stayed intact because it landed right on its end, but it's completely shattered the glass and the panel inside it. I don't know why I've kept hold of it, but you can imagine if that landed on top of you. So yeah, if you're gonna contract anybody, understand how they're gonna do it safely. James is saying we're having a 12 kilowatt heat pump installed. Oh wow, that's a big one. We have a large family home. No, so we don't. So heat pump heating strategy is one of those things. Especially if you go onto the Heat Geek forums, it can almost become a punch up. So we actually just set our temperatures and leave the heat pump to keep the house at a constant temperature. So during the coldest days of January, we had it at about 20.5 degrees, seemed to be the sort of comfortable spot. And we just left it to run all day. Now, the reason we did that was the vast majority of the energy to do that was coming out of our battery. So we were paying the 7p a kilowatt to run the heat pump all day. If you don't have sufficient battery capacity, and you need a lot of battery capacity for the 12 kilowatt heat pump, it probably makes sense to do the sort of burst heating where you'd heat the house during the off-peak period, let it cool down, maybe heat it a little bit more from batteries later on. You're going to have a different heating strategy than I would for that. But love to hear how it goes. A 12 kilowatt. I mean, I think mine's a 6 kilowatt, and it's a big old unit. So I'd love to see a picture of a 12 kilowatt. Robin's saying SunSync. Yeah, actually, a good friend of mine who lives down on the south coast has got a SunSync inverter, and he absolutely swears by it. Let's have a look. Stephen saying, scary with this running a heat pump 24 hours a day. What's the average day? So average daily kilowatts is, especially in the winter, is a little bit difficult to say, because on the coldest, I mean, just the heat pump here, excluding everything else, on the coldest day of, I think it was around about January the 20th, the heat pump pulled in over 30 kilowatt hours on its own, and that's a 6 kilowatt version. So James, you could be looking at double that, but that was one day. That was one day when I don't think the outside temperature during the day, even when the sun was up, was above about -1, and it was about -6 at night time. So it not representative of your average. Days like today, the heat pumps use about 2 kilowatts for the whole day, and that's including heat and hot water. So somewhere between the two, the average, I would say it's probably 18 maybe, it seems, for a winter's day. But obviously as we go into the summer and we start to either reduce the temperature of the house, which we're actually probably going to do if this mini heat wave that we're having keeps up, we'll probably drop the temperature another couple of degrees, which again will bring the power usage down. The thing you've got to remember is if you install a heat pump, yes, your electricity usage is going to go up significantly, but your gas usage is going to go down significantly as well. Last winter, we were paying over £100 a month in gas to run our gas boiler, obviously for heating and hot water, and for our hob. And you just saw the February numbers for gas, £2.90. So let's keep it around £100. We're using £3. We saved £97 off our gas bill. We haven't added £97 to our electricity bill. So yeah, the numbers look scary when you see usage like that, but the reality is the electricity, and especially if you've got that capacity to generate your own, the heat pump wins every single time. I mean, that was the main driving factor for getting a heat pump, was I can generate my own power for it for about 80% of the year. So yeah, the numbers will look scary, but remember, you are saving on gas. It's the same for anyone who's just getting an EV for the first time. The first time you get your electricity bill, the first month you've had your EV, you look at it horrified. And then you remember you haven't been going to the petrol pumps for the whole month, so it's not quite as bad as you thought it was going to be. Simon, when I have someone in Texas, the guys that... Does health and safety even exist in Texas? So for everyone else should know, Simon and I are old friends. We've known each other for years, and I actually visited his house in Austin, in Texas, when he lived there. But I mean, the one thing I've seen certainly on American houses is when people are up on the roof is because of the structure of the house. They put I was going to say carabiner, but they put they nail something into the roof on the top of it that lets them run ropes up through it, so they can run around on the roof a little bit safely, a little bit safer. Yeah, Indy Mine saying he's got a 6 kilowatt. I think it's a large unit. Same with mine. So the Daikin 6 kilowatt, I mean, it's over a meter, just over a meter wide, about 40-50 centimeters deep, and stands about a meter off the ground, or nearly a meter off the ground. Not a small unit by any stretch of the imagination. And this becomes the challenge if you're trying to install it into a property that doesn't have like mine is shoved around the side of the house. If you've got a terraced house and your only choices are front and back, large units can be a bit of a problem. I have seen there's somebody not far from me who's got one mounted up on the side of his house. Just like you sometimes see air conditioning units, it's up probably somewhere, halfway up the second story of his house. And I'm sure that's one way to get it up and out the way, so if you haven't got a lot of space. But I would imagine servicing it must be a bit of a nightmare. You'd need some sort of scaffolding for the engineer to get up there and service it once a year. Okay, we've got through all of the questions. Well, I'll give everybody a couple more minutes. If you've got any more questions, then feel free to throw them in there. But I just want to say thank you to everybody. I really enjoy, when I started making these videos sort of middle of last year, I really enjoyed it. It gives me something to do. As the wife said, it keeps me out the pub. But I really enjoyed doing it, and you guys have been fantastic. The support, you can see by the money there that we're raising from YouTube. We're gonna change somebody's life with that money later on this year. So with that, I'm going to sign off. thank you very much for joining me. I hope you found this session useful. Again, if anyone has questions, you can always reach out to me. My Gmail address is on the channel, or hit me up any other way. If not, I will see you all back here in a month's time for another stream. With that, take care. Bye-bye.